Now we're going to take our definitions from the last section and find the measures of angles. Now, one thing that's very, very important for this diagram is that you can see QRS are all collinear. They're all on the same line. If that is shown on a diagram and there is no bend or curve visible here, we are to assume that this is exactly a straight line. So from our last section, we can see that these are a linear pair or that they are supplementary. And we know that supplementary angles or linear pairs make a straight line and add up to 180 degrees. So we've got this expression here and this expression here for the two angles. Those two must add up to 180 degrees. That's going to give us an equation that we can solve for x. Once we have solved for x, we'll be able to plug it back in here to figure out exactly what the measure of that angle is. So let's set it up first. Supplementary means that these two angles add up to 180 degrees. Now, if I had the numbers, that would be nice, but we don't. We have 3x plus 5 for this angle and 10x minus 7 for this angle. Those two still add up to 180 degrees, even though we don't know what they are yet. So we'll solve this for x, and we'll figure out what the angles are in a second. Put these like terms together. We've got 3x and 10x. That gives us 13x. We've got 5 and negative 7. That gives us negative 2. So we get 13x minus 2 equals 180. If we add the 2 to both sides, that gives us 13x equals 182. And then we'll divide by 13 to get x equals, let's go ahead and plug that into a calculator to figure out the measure. So we get 182 divided by 13 equals 14. Now if our x value is 14, let's plug that back into here and find the measure of each of those angles. So we get 3. We're going to plug it into there first. 14 is our value for x. 3 times 14 plus 5. So we get 3 times 14, which is 42. And 42 plus 5 is 47 degrees. Now, I assume that this is 47 degrees. We'll check it in just a moment. Right here, we're going to plug that into 10x minus 7. So 10, the x value we know, again, is 14 minus 7. Oops, minus 7. 10 times 14 is 140 minus 7. And 140 minus 7 is 133. So we think that this one is 133 degrees. Now, earlier I said that they were supplementary, so they should add up to 180. 47 plus 133 indeed is 180, so we confirm that we have the correct angle measures. Now, I want to go back to the diagram. Clearly, the way that this is drawn, that should not be a 47-degree angle. So I told you that when we have a linear pair, we can know that they add up to 180 degrees, but this diagram shows that I don't know exactly which direction that line is pointed. Clearly, this one should be way over here, because that angle is much smaller than this one. All right, let's move on to our next one. So for this second one, we have a word problem that does not have a diagram. So we're going to break it down. We see that these two angles, XYZ and UVW, are complementary. Now I could draw a diagram of that if I wanted to, but I'm going to do this one without it. I'm just going to use our vocab word that we used from last section. Complementary means that those two angles add up to 90 degrees. It doesn't matter if they're next to each other. It doesn't matter if they're an adjacent pair or if they're completely separate. All we need to know to be able to figure this out is that they add up to 90 degrees. So this angle and this angle right here add up together to be 90 degrees. That's x minus 10 for that angle plus 4x minus 10. Those two add together to be 90 degrees. Again, this gives us something we can solve. We'll figure out what x is, put it back in, and then we'll confirm that they are indeed complementary to each other. So put the like terms together. X and 4x make 5x. A negative 10 and a negative 10 together make negative 20. And let's add that 20. So we get 5x equals 110. divide by 5, and we get x equals 22. Let's plug that into here and into here, figure out what those are. So we'll start here. We get 22 in place of x. So that gives us 22 minus 10, which is 12. So we think that this first one, the measure of angle UVW equals 12 degrees. Let's figure out what XYZ is. So let's plug the 22 again in for x. So we get 4 times 22 minus 10. 4 times 22 is 88 minus 10, so that gives us 78. So we think that the measure of this is 78 degrees. If I have 12 degrees and 78 degrees, add those together and they are 90 degrees. So those two angles indeed are complementary. That confirms that we did our calculations correctly. So we write measure angle XYZ is equal to 78 degrees, and we're finished. Thank you.